In this video, the learning target that I'm going to be talking about is I can solve quadratics in standard form by factoring. Now, when factoring, there's different techniques you may have been taught. In this video, I'm going to use the guess and check method, which I kind of think of as reverse FOIL. Now, remember, a standard form equation of a quadratic is when you have an x squared term, an x term, and a constant term. And like I said, we're going to use factoring to solve these. So if I look at number one, I'm given x squared equals negative 2x plus 15, and I want to figure out what x value is going to make this statement true. So when you're given a standard form equation, the first thing you want to do is you want to get all the terms on the same side. Now, I could do that by moving the x squared over to the right side, or I can move the negative 2x and the positive 15 to the left side. Now, I typically choose to move the terms to the other side to try to make sure that the a term, the first term, the x squared term, is positive. Okay, I like to keep that guy positive. So I'm going to add 2x and minus 15 from both sides so that I keep the x squared positive on the left side. So I'm going to get x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals, and then everything cancels out on the right side, and I'm just left with 0 there. Okay, now when I do this, like I said, I want the a term positive, and I also want it in order, right? I want it as x squared, then x to the first, and then no x's. Okay, so it needs to be in order like it is here. Now, once I have it equal to 0, now I can go ahead and factor it. Okay, I'm going to factor it into two parentheses that when I multiply these two binomials together, they'll FOIL to give me this back. Okay, so like I said, this is when we use the guess and check method, and we're kind of using reverse FOIL in our minds. So I'm asking myself, what times what in the first spot would multiply to my first term? So what times what gives me x squared? Well, that's just x times x, right? If I multiply x times x, that gives me the x squared. That's like the f part of FOIL. Then I ask myself, what can I put in the last spot and the last spot that will give me my last number? Well, to get 15, that can be 1 times 15. That could also be 3 times 5, right? Either one of these, if I multiply 1 and 15, that'll give me a 15, and 3 and 5 will also give me 15. But I need to make sure that I'm keeping FOIL in the back of my mind. The O and the I, when I multiply the outside and the inside, they need to combine to give me the 2x in the middle. So this is where the guess and check part of the method comes in. We're going to pick a pair of numbers, we're going to plug them in, and then we're going to check to see if we get the 2x in the middle. Now, you want to use a little bit of intuition here. And what I mean by that is if I want a 2x in the middle, am I going to be better off with the 1 and 15 or the 3 and 5? Hopefully you notice that 3 and 5 are 2 apart. So we're probably going to want to choose the 3 and 5 to guess first. Okay, I'm using intuition to make that guess. So I'm going to plug in 5 and I'm going to plug in 3. Now, in order to get a negative 15, when I take the last times the last, one of these needs to be positive and one of them needs to be negative. Okay, so I'm going to make the 3 negative and the 5 positive. Okay, so I'm just guessing positive 5, guessing negative 3. Now, when I do the check part of the guess and check method, I need to check the outside and the inside and make sure that they combine to give me the middle term. So if I check the outside, well, negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And then if I check the inside, 5 times x is 5x. If I take 5x minus 3x, do I get positive 2x? Yeah, I do. So it checks out, right? This is correct. So the proper factoring is x plus 5 times x minus 3. So I'm just going to copy that down below it for now. So x plus 5 times x minus 3 equals 0. Once I have the problem factored, okay, I know that if I take this parentheses times the second parentheses and it equals 0, I know one of these two parentheses has to be equal to 0. The reason why is, let's suppose that this first parentheses was equal to 0. Well, 0 times x minus 3 would be 0, right? Because 0 times anything would be 0. Or this parentheses could be equal to 0, in which case x plus 5 times 0 would equal 0. So the only way to get a 0 is for one of these two to be equal to 0. So what I do is I set x plus 5 equal to 0, and I set x minus 3 equal to 0, and then I just solve these two. So I would minus 5, get x equals negative 5, and then add 3 and get x equals 3. Okay, so in this problem, negative 5 and 3 would be the solutions that make the statement true. All right, let's go ahead and look at a few more examples of this. So in number 2, I have 3x squared minus 11x equals 4. So once again, I'm going to start by getting everything on one side so that I can factor. So I get 3x squared minus 11x minus 4 equals 0. And then I'm going to factor that using the reverse FOIL guess and check method. And when I do this, I'm asking myself, what times what gives me the first term? Well, it's 3x squared. So 3x times x gives me 3x squared. So that's the F part of FOIL. Then I ask myself, what times what gives me the last term? Well, the last term is a negative 4. So to get a negative 4, or to get 4, I need 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. Okay, but one of the numbers in each pair has to be negative in order to get a negative 4. Now, using these numbers and the 3 and the 1 on the x's, I need to try to get negative 11 in the middle when I check the O and the I parts of FOIL. Now, once again, this is where you want to use a little bit of intuition. Now, I'm juggling these numbers 1 and 4, 2 and 2, 3 and 1, and I'm trying to look for a combination that will get me to 11. Now, I have experience doing this, so I can quickly see that the 1 and 4 is going to be my best option. I recognize that 4 times 3 gives me to 12. Then if I just go down one less, I'm at 11, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 4 in the last spot so that when I do the O part of FOIL, 4 times 3 gives me 12x. And then when I do the middle with the I, or the 1, the I part of FOIL, I get 1 times x, which is 1x. And then if I want a negative 11 in the middle, I want the 12 to be negative. So the 4 is going to have to be negative, and the 1 is going to have to be positive. You'll now notice that negative 12 plus 1x gives me negative 11x. Okay, and 1 times negative 4 gives me the last term, negative 4. Okay, so just to recap, the first times the first gives me the first, the last times the last gives me the last, but I need to check to make sure that the outside and the inside combine to give me the middle term. Once I have it factored, I can copy that down. So 3x plus 1 times x minus 4 equals 0. And then if two things multiplied together equals 0, that means one of them has to be equal to 0. Either the first guy equals 0, in which case 0 times x minus 4 is 0, or the second guy equals 0, in which case 3x plus 1 times 0 would be 0. So because one of these has to be equal to 0, to solve it, I can set them both equal to 0 and just solve each of them separately. So I get minus 1, 3x equals negative 1, divide by 3, I get x equals negative 1/3, or add 4 and get x equals 4. Okay, so I have two solutions, either x can equal negative 1 or x equals 4. All right, let's look at two more examples here. So in number 3, I have 12x squared minus 2 equals negative 5x. So I'm going to go ahead and add 5x over. Now, remember, when I add it over, I want to make sure that the terms are in order. It should go the square, then the x, then the constant. So when I add the 5x over, I'm going to make sure it goes in the middle. So I get 12x squared plus 5x minus 2 equals 0. Okay. Once everything's on the same side, I'm going to go ahead and factor it using the guess and check method. Now, this problem is one of the tougher ones that you'll see. And the reason why is because our first term can split multiple ways. So what I'm going to do is underneath here, I'm just going to kind of jot down different ways I can split this first term, okay? When I split 12 times x squared, well, that could be 12x and x, right? If I multiply those two together, I would get 12x squared. However, I could also take 6x times 2x, right? 6 times 2 gives me 12 as well. And I could even do 3x and 4x, right? 3 times 4 gives me 12 as well. X times x gives me x squared. So you'll notice that there's 3 different options that I can have that can multiply to this 12x squared. So when I do the guess and check, I need to make sure that I check to see which of these options is going to work. That's like the F part of FOIL, okay? But I have 3 different options that are possibilities. Then I do the L part of FOIL. I ask myself, what times what gives me the last term? Well, to get a 2, it's just 1 times 2. Okay, so we only have one option for that. So what I'm going to do now is I need to check the O and the I. I need to take the 1 and the 2, looking at the numbers that I'm given here, 12 and 1, 6 and 2, 3 and 4. I need to figure out how can I get 5x in the middle, juggling these numbers in my mind, okay? So when I look at this, like I said, you might get better at this with more practice. So it's okay. So you might guess wrong originally, and that's perfectly fine. So let's say I try the middle one, and maybe I plug the 2 there and the 1 here, and because I need a -2, I make the 2 negative and the 1 positive. Okay? So I made my guess. Then you just check it. If you check the inside, well, -2 times 2x is -4x. And then if you check the outside, so if I take the 1 times the 6x, well, that gives me 6x. If I take -4x and combine it with 6x, does that give me 5x in the middle? No, right? It doesn't work. Now, I could try flipping those, and you might see that that doesn't work either, right? Now, instead of getting stressed out by not having it right, just remember, this is guess and check, okay? You made a guess, it didn't work, that's okay, try another set. Now, as you get better at these and you get better at juggling the numbers and sort of playing the game of factoring, you'll notice that if you take 2 times 4, well, that gets you to 8. And if you subtract 3 from that, that will give you 5. So because I see an avenue of how to get to 5, I'm going to put the 2 in this spot so that the inside 2 will get multiplied together, which will give me 8x. And then I'm going to put a -1 in the last spot because -1 times 3x gives me -3x. And if I combine those now, 8x minus 3x, well, that gives me the 5x that I needed. So the proper factoring is 3x plus 2 times 4x minus 1 equals 0, okay? Once it's factored, remember if the two factors being multiplied together equals 0, well, that just either means the first one equals 0 or the second one equals 0, and then I can just solve both of these. So I can minus 2, get 3x equals -2. I can divide by 3, and I'll get x equals -2/3. And then in the second guy, if I add 1, I get 4x equals 1. Divide by 4, and I'll get x equals 1/4. Okay, so one answer is x equals 1/4. The other answer is x equals -2/3. Now, like I said, that's a tougher one. Okay, that's one of the tougher ones you'll see. And that occurs when the a value is a non-prime number. Okay, it can be broken apart multiple ways, and you just need to guess and check using the numbers that are available to figure out how to get it so that the O and the I will combine to give you 5x. All right, let's look at number 4. This is the last example we'll do in this video to try and just get a better idea of how we do this. So if I have 14x minus 24 equals -5x squared, I'm going to add 5x squared to both sides. The x squared will cancel. I'm left with 0 on the right side. That's going to give me 5x squared plus 14x minus 24. And then I want to factor this. So I'm going to break it apart into the two parentheses, and I'm keeping FOIL in the back of my mind. I'm asking myself what times what gives me the first term. Well, that's 5x and x. And then I ask myself what times what gives me the last term. Well, the last term is 24. So that's going to be 1 and 24. It could be 2 and 12. It could be 3 and 8. It could be 4 and 6, right? All of these pairs of numbers multiply to give me 24. Now, once again, I need to pick the pair that I see giving me a route to 14. Okay, and like I said, as you get more practice with this, you will get better at using intuition to find this. I can tell pretty quickly that this bottom pair is going to be my best option. Okay, the reason why is because I noticed that 4 times 5 is 20, and then if I take away 6, that's going to give me 14. So I'm going to put the 4 in the last spot, so that gets me to 20x. And then I'm going to put the 6 in the middle, so that gives me 6x. I need those to combine to 14, so I want the 4 to be positive, and I want the 6 to be negative. Okay, so the proper factoring here is 5x minus 6 times x plus 4. Now, once again, if you made an incorrect guess, that's okay. Just try another combination, check the inside and the outside, and make sure that the O and the I combine to give you the middle. Once you have it factored, set your two factors equal to 0, and then we just solve them. So we're going to add 6, get 5x equals 6, divide by 5, we get x equals 6/5. And then the other one, I just minus 4, and I get x equals negative 4. Okay, so one last time here, just to kind of recap from the top. When solving quadratics in standard form by factoring using the guess and check method, or what I call reverse FOIL, just know that you're kind of doing FOIL backwards. You're asking yourself, what times what gives me the first term? What times what gives me the last term? And then you check the inside and the outside to make sure that you get the middle. And if you guess wrong, that's okay. You just try another pair of numbers and then another arrangement to try to get this middle. And as you get more practice with it, I promise you that you'll get better at the intuition, and you'll start to see how to quicker and easierly get this number in the middle.